we should also discuss the word minority. Here's why I'm saying this. I looked up tokenism, definition of tokenism. It was very hard for me to find a definition of tokenism without the word minority in there. Now you might utilize that in your everyday language as well. I'm going to tell you, like, this is why I believe that we need to unpack this for just a moment. The term minority does not account for one's family, friends, relationships, group membership, neighborhood, etc. Let me get a little bit more about this, right? If you look up the definition of minority, and I'm paraphrasing, but Merriam-Webster, dictionary.com, whoever is going to say something such as, less than the majority, right? Less than. But what happens in certain neighborhoods, for example? We know that in a lot of our schools are segregated as well. So if I'm a school, and let's say 90% of the student population in this school is of color, they would still often, in a lot of people's circles, be referred to as minorities. That's why I say it doesn't account for friends, relationships, right? If I got a lot of homies and I identify as black. So if all my friends are black, not a gang or a minority group, like, no, everybody's like, we're all black folks. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense to me to utilize that term. Now, I think the other way to look at it is not being a minority, but being someone who has been historically minoritized, more of a verb, as opposed to it being a descriptor, an adjective. That makes sense. Okay. We think about affinity groups. A lot of our schools have a Black Student Union. They have all these different, there's a lot of legislation out there that's looked at to pass laws to where funding can't go to quote unquote minority organizations or groups. But in those spaces, they are the majority. In those spaces, they're not the minority. So there's that famous quote, minority to who? But again, that is a term that I don't utilize the term minority anymore, because I get it. To me, it comes with a negative connotation, and it doesn't really make sense when you think about it from a larger scale. When you think about who we tend to hang around, we tend to hang around folks that look like us, especially if we have that choice. We tend to engage like our families, those kind of things, in our neighborhood situations, church, organizations, community events. They're not minorities, right? They're often in the majority, or it's just us, those kind of things. I'm gonna get a little bit more because this is in our news, right? We see this headlines, right? I was searching for the term tokenism, and everything had minority in it. And it was just really hard to find a definition without that word in it. But you see a lot of major news stations or major news avenues utilize this majority minority. Majority minority doesn't make sense to me. How is it that 98%, 51, let's just call it 51, right? That's majority. Let's call it 51% of color, they're still being referred to as minorities. Majority minority doesn't make sense. But I found several articles, and sadly, some of these articles are written by people of color being referred to. I don't utilize the term. Okay. Minority majority schools offer students opportunities. Minority majority. I mean, this is as of 2021. You got 2023, April, a couple months ago. School board votes to close Just Elementary in West Tampa, and they talking about it being a majority minority school. Doesn't make any sense to me. So that's why I think we need to talk about the term minority, and that's why I don't utilize the term minority anymore. I prefer sometimes I just say black or brown, whatever, whatever the race or the main, I might say it that way. I might say historically underserved, underrepresented, or minoritized people of color. It just kind of depends on the situation. But I don't utilize the term minority as a description